I want to start off maybe discussing how you arrived at becoming a drummer, just to set that up. I understand that music was a big part of your home life and that the piano was there. Can you talk a little bit about that musical environment and how you developed early as a musician?
My family is, my grandmother was a pianist, and she had 7 daughters. My mother was one of her daughters, and she made all of her daughters play the piano because she's a pianist. So in turn, all of my aunts made their children. I have cousins that, I have one in New York that made his debut in Carnegie. He's teaching piano in New York now, often. And his sisters, brothers, they all know how to play the piano, classics. My immediate family, I was the only one in my family that leaned towards music. My brothers and sisters rebelled, and my mother didn't press them like my aunts pressed their children, but she used to press me. And I didn't really want to play the piano because I'd heard so much of it with my aunt, because I stayed with my aunt and my cousins a long time, and I learned a lot about the piano. But my mind has always been towards the drums. I don't know what it is, it's just something about the drum that I loved. You know, I used to get suspended when I was in school for a day, for using pencils on the desk. And my teachers used to call me in the back of the room, Jones. But just something about drums that fascinated me. And my mother saw it at an early age, so she didn't really force me into the piano because she wanted me to do what I felt I wanted to do. So I just stayed with the drums as much as I could during my young years as I grew up. And I used to go into nightclubs and hang around the back window and listen to fine drummers in Philadelphia. And I finally asked one of them to help me. And Coach Phil Harris, a young drummer in Philly, was the greatest drummer in Philadelphia at the time. And he took me under his wing and showed me a lot of things. And I started developing.
So you didn't take drum lessons per se?
No, yeah, I studied later.
Later.
I had been playing 5 years professionally before I started to study drums.
So how did you, when you were, you know, we kind of leaped a lot of time, but as a young man, when you were going around the clubs, you were what, 14, 15, 17, 18? What would that?
Oh, no, I was between 13 and 15 because I went in the Army when I was 16.
Did you have a set of drums at that point?
No.
But so it was just an ear thing?
Well, I'd play on anything.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have any drums at that time, no.
Uh-huh. So did you start playing music before the Army, after the Army? When did you start working?
I came into music after I was discharged. After I was discharged, but see, in the Army, I used to get a chance to go over to the rec hall and play with the in some rehearsal sitting with the company band when they were playing. They were jamming in those days, and I was just coming along. But I used to go in and sit down and play something with them as the best I could play. But that wasn't my job. I couldn't be in the band. I was a military policeman, so I just go over there when I had a chance to get away.
So you went in the Army at 16?
Yeah, 17.
Why'd you do that?
Well, I put my age up. You're supposed to be 17 before you can get in.
Why'd you do that?
Well, when I came out of school, I just didn't see anything I wanted to do. I thought maybe my father, my stepfather, was a career Army man, and he was a veterinarian in the Army, and he had taught me all kinds of everything, a rifle manual, everything, you know, how to march, everything. So he wanted me to hurry up and get a ready. I don't know. Maybe he wanted to get rid of us. So we had 3 sons. And my stepfather. So I joined the Army, and my brothers joined, and we went away. But I still had music in my mind. But I couldn't go in for the band because I wasn't that qualified.
So before you went into the Army and made a decision, there were drummers that were teaching you things.
The drummers I was listening to. I was listening to, and showing me a few pointers at that age. A few pointers. I didn't really get really get into it deep with them until I came home. Because when I came home, I was just 21, and it took me a little while to get to them and get some better lessons from them, and I'm an older person. And I got it together pretty good and went to work in Philadelphia.
Who was when you came out of the Army, who were some of the drummers that you began to interact with and get some information?
After I was out of service, I was listening to Art and Max all the time. I used to come to Brooklyn. See, I was driving a streetcar in Philadelphia when I got out of service because I was married and I had to have a job. So I was driving a streetcar, and I used to go, Kenny Dennis, Nancy Wilson's ex-husband, who's a drummer also. He and I used to leave Philadelphia on the weekend and go over to Monroe Street in Brooklyn to Max Roach's house and spend the weekend. Spend 2 days there. We go over there Saturday and be there Sunday and then leave Sunday and come back. I just come back to work. And we'd hang out with Max Roach and we would sit up in his room and he would take us through different books and we would just talk ideas about drums, and he was so helpful to me. Max was very helpful to me in those days. Max was out there playing. He was one of my idols at that time. And he and I were good friends, and he'd come to Philly often. And so I got him to say, man, I'm going to come over to your house on the weekends. So we did that for quite a few weekends. And I learned an awful lot. Max used to tell me some good books to get into. And then I finally found...
what period of time was this? In the 40s? Mid-40s? Was this when Max had that house was sort of like a studio type thing?
No, he was home with his mother. He was home with his mother in Monroe Street, before his children. Max and I go back, way back to the babies. All of his children when they were babies. So he was home with Mom in Monroe Street in Brooklyn. And I wouldn't, not 100 times, nothing like that. Maybe about 5, 6 times we went over there to help us, help me and Kenny. Kenny was a good friend of his also, so. And then Kenny Clark was in New York. I had a lot of beautiful people to meet.
Was Kenny Clark a big influence in your thinking about music?
He was influence on Max and Art.
So you think of there's a hierarchy that Kenny Clark is at the apex of it.
Well, I figure Kenny was the orchestrator of the way we play the drums today. Kenny was the first drummer that started breaking rhythms and playing the way that we play when we play with a group. But all the drummers used to play different. Then they never had that many drums. Or the drums you see, some of these guys have 15 drums. But Kenny came along with Baby Dodds and Sid Catlett. Kenny was back then playing with Fats Waller and all those in those days. So they were only using like an Indian tom-tom and one cymbal and bass drum and snare drum. They didn't have all that other stuff around. Those were great drummers. And I came through I'm glad that God let me pass this way at that time. And I ran into Baby Dodds and Sid Catlett, and those were Denzel. Those were the greatest brush players I've ever seen in my life.
What were
and drummers.
What was, just for anecdote's sake, what was Baby Dodds and what was he like?
Well, he was just what can I say? He was just a natural drummer and a natural person. He was a very beautiful person, happy-go-lucky. I never heard him say anything funny, man. I used to go and ask him all kind of questions. Because he worked across the street when I was working in 52nd Street in New York, after I went to New York to live. I couldn't stay out of there. I'd go there every minute I get a chance. I get a break, I'd be across the street with him. Because he would be using the bass drum, snare drum, and one cymbal, Indian tom-tom, and swinging. He was phenomenal.
What about Sid Catlett?
Well, he was more phenomenal. He was like an extension, although Baby might have been older than Sid. I don't know their ages, but they were around at the same time. But Sid was more of Sid had a little more fire. Baby was a very technical player. He was a master of playing the snare drums and the cymbals. Sid was the master of playing the brushes and, because Dizzy had Sid for a while making some records with him. Sid was fast and hands were beautiful. He was a little different.
And then
he's a little more polished, I'll say.
Then
a little more polished.
And then Kenny comes out of them.
Well, Kenny was around during that same time. But Kenny had a different direction in mind. And his direction was fantastic. Sid and Baby used to love to watch him.
Did you get a chance? Did you spend a lot of time with Kenny Clark?
Oh, yeah, we used to live with Kenny. Sure.
In New York? Or? And during that time, did you share a lot with him?
Every day we could. Every day we could. We'd play on the practice pads. Practice pad and snare drum. Kenny said, man, this is called the one-eyed monster. The practice pad, because he didn't like practice pads too much. That's why I never used them. And you get too much help from them. You use the drum.
You spent a lot of time with the snare drum.
Snare drum or a bar stool. I have a bar stool in my house that I use. With a vinyl top on it. I use that.
Rather than a practice pad?
Yeah, because when you use the stick just drops dead. It don't bounce. If it bounces, you made it bounce.
Okay.
If you drop it on a rubber pad, it'll say
it bounce by itself. So you get more.
Whatever the stick does, you have to make it do.
Right.
If you want to say, you have to make it do that. If you drop it on the bar stool, you'll say that.
Right.
If you drop it on the pad, it'll do that. Because the rubber makes it bounce.
Right.
But so I never approved of using practice pads in my day when I practice. I practice on a surface like this. Just like this. You get no help from me. The stick doesn't drop dead immediately. So if you can roll on this,
you can really roll.
You can roll.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily. I'm still after that. That's a hard thing to master, the roll. The best people I know that master rolls are march drummers.
Did you have marching experience?
Oh, yeah.
Drum and bugle
Sure.
corps?
Well, I did. A lot of the books are in cut time, march time, you know, the books I studied. And I studied with it. My formal teacher was a master percussionist, and Cozy Cole's one of the greatest teachers in life for me.
Is that who you taught? That's who you studied with?
Yeah, I studied with Cozy about 3.5 years.
When was that period in your...
During the 40s when I moved to New York.
Were you about 22, 23 at that point?
Yeah.
And what kind of exercise would you? What would be a Cozy Cole lesson for you? What would you
go through his books?
Go through his books, huh?
Go through his books, and they tell you about your hands and how to use them, how to develop them as best you can, so you can get some speed and power. And
so it's like exercises, a lot of exercises.
Well, his exercises. There are exercises and there are exercises. See, some of the drum books, the average drum book I look at, because I teach often when I'm home, and I've had a school in England. I've taught a lot of drummers, and a lot of Michael Carvin's one of my ex-students, and a whole lot of drummers. And Andrew Cerullo is one of my formal students. He wasn't there a long time, but he was there. But I have go down the line with an awful lot of drummers that are playing professionally today and have developed. But you have to get a good knowledge of the instrument and your reading ability, your rudimental ability. That's what I went to Cozy for rudiments, because I was playing them, but I didn't know what they were.
Right.
So if you asked me about a C, or D, or E with the piano, I knew that from being at home all the time when I was a kid. But if you put it on, if you write it out for drums, I didn't know what it would look like. So Cozy told me what it looks like and what you're playing, and that's what it is.
Right.
So then he make me develop them, the rudiments, and once you get the rudiments in your hands, then you can do what you want to do. In other words, you have your bag of tricks. That's what I call it.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about brushes, we've talked about rolls, we've talked about things that Cozy Cole, you know, the kind of training that you had from him. Would you be interested in showing us some of these things and maybe elaborating into some playing?
I'm going to do a little, they have a brush book out. It's called Brushed Artistry. It's in the stores. Excuse me. I'm going to just do a few things out of the book, a few motions that are in that book, and then I want to just play around the set, rudimentally or whatever comes into my mind, just to play the drums for a while, and then I want to do a thing I call cymbalectomy.
Okay.
It's like the dance on the cymbals. It's nothing but all cymbals.
Okay.
And what you can do with cymbals. Just some ideas. And it's like something, and all this is coming off the top of my head now. I don't have anything planned because I never plan. So if you plan, sometimes plans go awry or something. So I like to just look at the drums and go play them.
Oh, go play them then.
Yes, go play them.
Okay.
See, I often hear people say, I was telling a kid yesterday at the concert, his father brought him to meet me, a little youngster. And he was talking, he loves drums, that's what he wants to do. So he was saying he asked me about my snare drum and saying, well, if I beat it this way, and I said, wait a minute now, look, you want to get this in your head first. And you never beat the drums. Don't ever let anybody, if anybody says you beat the drums, you tell them I play the drums. Don't say, you don't beat the drums, play them. Drum beaters don't ever sound good, so you play it. An instrument is to be played, not beat. It's nothing nice to be beat. I mean, a little kid laughed.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's
right.
A distinction that really is a difference. Okay, can we cut and go do that? Okay. The last segment of the drum solo you just played, after the cymbal portion, seemed to flow out of a creative use of rudiments. Is this part of what you got out of the Cozy Cole experience, that real strong foundation rudiments allows you to branch off like that?
Yeah, because these ideas of how you should be a rudimental drummer, it'll help you in developing your hands, it'll help you in developing your mind too. As long as you know all the rudiments, like I said earlier, it's like a bag of tricks that you can reach into when you need them. Mm-hmm. If there's something I want to say, I can use a rudiment to say it. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier than just, most drummers that don't know anything about rudiments have a hard time saying what they want to say. It's a conversation.
Okay.
Most of the great drummers I know are rudimental drummers. All the great ones I know went through rudiments, and don't mean that you have to sound like a Boy Scout when you're playing, but it's nice to have the knowledge of them, and you can make them sound. I make them do anything I want to do, and I just felt like working out because my hands felt that way.
That way. You say it's early in the day for you.
Yeah, it is early for me. Uh-huh. It's early in the day for me to be playing by myself. Okay. So usually early in the day when I have to play early some afternoons. In fact, we played the Clifford and I played the gig in Zurich at 11 o'clock in the morning when the gig started. Mm-hmm. But when you're playing with other fellas, you come around sooner because of the other instruments. But when you're playing by yourself, really, this reminds me of what I used to do when I was first started to play drums. I used to get up in the morning and practice like that for about an hour, and then leave it go and come back later and do some more. But I don't do this at all, man. This time of the day. Yeah.
When you were first developing as a drummer, that real intense period, how much time were you putting in on the instrument?
Oh, I wouldn't. I've heard guys say they practice 6 or 7 hours a day. I've never done it in my life. Mm-hmm. I practice like an hour at a time, an hour, and I go away and leave the drums alone for half an hour and come back and do another hour. That's what I'm doing for the day. Uh-huh. That's all. Then I come back sometimes, and some days I would just practice one thing that I'm trying to get together, something that I can't do. Uh-huh. I'd practice that for maybe 45 minutes and leave it alone. Uh-huh. And go do something else, get it out of the ear, and then come back again and do another 45 minutes. That's my practice for the day. And my practice would be not just all around the drums like I was just doing. I would get on one thing and develop that and clean it up and then get something else. Mm-hmm. As soon as I clean that up, get another one, clean it up, and then you get them all together, they're all cleaned up, you can put them together. But if you're sitting up there playing all kinds of different things and trying to develop that way, it's hard to keep your mind on everything that you want to do. You've got to concentrate on one thing that you're not doing correctly, get that done. Mm-hmm. Use something else that day. You can pick 2 things a day, but not 6 hours of, I don't know what you could play in 6 hours. Mm-hmm. I don't know when the drummer can be sitting down and someone he practiced for 6 hours. Or 4 hours. I can't understand that. Me, not even 2 straight. Yeah. Sit down and practice for 2 hours, it don't make sense to me. I'd rather spend the time reading and trying to read some books or something, drum books or something for an hour or something. Get into that and then leave it alone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all related in a way. It's all part of development.
Some teachers will teach you different ways, But all the young drummers that are trying to play the drums, they get involved in it and they feel like they want to play that long. They think because they're soaking wet that they've done something. Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily.
Later on to find out they didn't do anything.
Well, switch gears a little bit. A little bit earlier we were talking about your the middle 40s period. Can you give me, talk about the scene in Philadelphia at that point? Who were some of the prominent musicians that you were working with or that were your peers?
It's easy to talk about them. The only thing that escapes me is actual dates and whatnot, because that's a growing up period for me right in there, and just having been released from the army and whatnot and wanting to do something else and getting married and whatnot and being that young and working hard every day, I wanted to go in another direction because I didn't like hard work. Yeah. It's the hardest work I like to do, and I wanted to get away from that. But I had to still work to support my family. But I used to go to the clubs and just listen and sit in. And I wasn't, I was still growing. I remember when Jimmy Heath had a big band in the city. Had a very fine drummer, Specs Wright, and Willie Armstrong, and Nacido after he changed his name. They were great drummers, but Coatesville Harris, like I said, taught me most of my, my formal training as a youngster. And an old man that used to be in the nightclub across the street from where I lived, I used to watch him through the window. And then on the days of his rehearsals in the afternoon, I could go in, he was in the back room, and he'd show me a lot of things. And I learned from different drummers, and I would ask. I'm never too humble to ask a drummer. I'd do that today. If I see a young drummer doing something and I wonder what it is, I just ask him and then write it down, and I got it, and I know what it is. Use it, turn it around my way or whatever. But I met a lot of the musicians and coming up in Philadelphia, Jimmy Oliver and Hassan.
Stop for a minute and talk about Hassan. He's a figure. I only know of one record that he did, the pianist. During what period was he active? And
he was active when I was in school. We used to call him Count Langford, because he'd been like Count Basie in those days. His name was William Langford, and he became Hassan ibn Ali. But he, after he accepted Islam, he was playing more fluently. In school, he was just playing Count Basie's thing. Then he went into he went to another door of piano. And he was playing beautiful piano in those days that later on the concept of music went into that. But Hassan was doing that years ago.
You mean a more dissonant, angular approach?
Yeah, it's playing, in the almost avant-garde, but correct. See, and Elmo Hope was his biggest influence. But Elmo was Bud's influence, and Monk. Monk and Bud loved Elmo so much, man. Elmo was the real genius of the piano. He was a genius. And Monk loved him, and Bud, because we used to see Bud grew up in Philly too. And
even though he was from New York, he spent a lot of time in Philadelphia?
Bud's from Philadelphia.
Bud's from Philadelphia?
Bud Powell's from Philadelphia. He came from Willow Grove. That's originally. Bud and Richard. But Elmo's West Indian. He came from New York. But after I finally moved to New York, because when I left Philadelphia with them.
With Elmo?
With Elmo Hope and Joe Morris and Johnny Griffin and the Rhythm and Blues Band.
That was Bull Moose Jackson's band?
No.
This
was Johnny Griffin and Joe Morris.
Band.
Johnny Griffin and Joe Morris and Matthew G. and Percy Heath, and I played drums. Elmo Hope was the pianist. This was an 8-piece rhythm and blues band. We had about 5 or 6 hits on the jukebox at once.
Oh yeah? What were these hits? Remember what they were?
Oh yeah, we played Wow. We played The Spider. I'm on all those records, Atlantic. My discography goes all the way back there. Yeah, we made a lot of things. When he had Wow, and Joe used to sing. He used to sing a few tunes that were on record. That's what the real days of. See, they had just left Lionel Hampton's band. They were in Lionel Hampton's band. And I used to go out whenever Lionel Hampton would come in town, and Hamp used to always say to me, "Come on, I'm gonna play something, man. Come on, play something." And he'd play Flying Home and all that stuff. And I was getting stronger then. I could play with it. I always had a knack to play with a group and with a big band, even though I wasn't reading big band music. But I had a way of just being able to play with them. So it just was whatever way I felt. As long as you could swing, everything was cool. But Joe and Johnny decided to leave Hamp's band and form their own band. So they did so, and they had a drummer from Chicago who got sick and he couldn't leave the city. And they came to Philadelphia, and that's when I joined their band at the Zanzibar in Philadelphia. I sat in with them one night. So they gave me the job, and that was Barnstorm, and I went on the road with them, and that was the beginning of my road career with them. That's from Miami to Maine, and from From New York to California, to New York to Los Angeles.
Everywhere.
San Francisco, on the road.
Yeah.
Driving. I was doing the driving and playing the drums.
So you say that Elmo was an influence on Monk and Bud, not vice versa.
Mm-hmm. They influenced each other.
Yeah.
But Elmo had the heaviest, you know, see, they really loved each other. I used to go to the house and watch all three of them play the piano one by one. He would start a tune and play as much of it as he wanted to, and then the next one would come right in wherever he'd leave off, and Bud would play right where it was in Bud's house on St. Nicholas. And I used to sit there for hours during the day and watch them do that, because we were all friends. And man, it was some, I wish to God I'd had a tape recorder in those days, but it was some fabulous, I never even knew. It's a shame they were using wire recorders in those days, you know, you know, no tapes. But if you had a cassette in those days, man, that would be, oh my God, it'd be worth millions.
Another musician that in Philadelphia that whose name comes up in reference but it's kind of obscure is Count Basie.
Oh yeah, but Cal was around in those days too. Sure. Cal was a very excellent musician. He used to play trumpet with us all the time when we were, see, when we were growing up, and I was going around the city sitting in, we used to have sessions at everybody's house. Next week it'd be at my house. This week, everybody had a piano in the house. Johnny Cole's would be at your house next week, and it'd be 2 o'clock. The door would start opening, and here comes Coltrane, here comes Jimmy Heath, and 2 or 3 other drummers. I would be there, and saxophone players and trumpet players, and we just have a couple sets. Everybody play something. You know, we put the quintet together and play. When that trumpet player got tired, let another trumpet player playing. But it was a learning process. Everybody was learning. Before drummers there, I'd play some with these guys and then stop and let another drummer play. Sometimes we wouldn't even stop the music. Just come right on in.
Well, you know, that kind of situation, that's how the music was passed down in that time. That doesn't exist much anymore.
Well, it don't exist today because you've got so many egotistical musicians before they even get to know their instrument. They're so egotistical and they got such a big head, and if they learn how to play 2 or 3 notes, and then the avant-garde open the door for them, those who can't play, they can just make a whole lot of noise and get away with it. And they carry a bag around with them and didn't really study. Some of them they were on the bandstands a few years ago, making all that noise because they could get away with it. But it turned around, and now they can't get away with it, and they have to go and study some more. But you see, musicians are very funny. Some musicians, that is, I don't think they're musicians because if they were, they wouldn't be that funny. They don't want to. They want to help nobody with what they're doing. So they may go faster than they do. Try to keep all the knowledge to themselves, which is it's a shame that it has to be that way. But there's so many other musicians, man, like myself, man. Anything I could help a drummer with, I would try, and you know, whatever. And if you ask me, it's nothing about saying, oh, I don't want to talk about it or something. And I think that's ridiculous. But you got a lot of musicians that do that. Don't want to discuss their instrument at all, and don't have any sessions where you can come and play. And when you're playing in a club, if somebody can play a little bit and they come to see you and would like to play some, no, we don't allow them to sit there. And I think that's ridiculous. Give everybody a little shot somewhere, if it's possible. Some clubs you can't do that.
Yeah.
But in some clubs you can set aside a session and a jam session time.
Was during that time, was Philadelphia really different than other cities in that kind of?
Yeah, we've had so many clubs in Philly, which it is today, man. We got a lot of clubs. Musicians can play in many, many clubs in Philadelphia. And in Philadelphia, you don't hear. See, Philadelphia's been that way as long as I've known it, man. In every club I go in Philadelphia, man, they're planning to play some modern, progressive black music. Some good bebop and some good contemporary music that people can hum, music that people can dance by, music that people can listen to. Constructive music that's pleasing to the ear. And then you have the other loud electronics in some clubs. But the majority of the people in Philadelphia don't cater to that. The people cater to the young, ignorant children that haven't heard any music at all, and all they want to do is hear something blaring and put earphones on and ruin their eardrums and whatnot. They don't teach it in schools.
Did you, an important musical relationship in your life was the one with Tad Dameron. Did you meet him in Philadelphia? How did you associate?
When I met Tad in Philly, the same way. I was in Philadelphia, and Art Blakey didn't get to a job, and they asked me to make it because I was right there next door. And the guys in New York had been hearing about me in Philadelphia, and every time they come in, they knew. A lot of them used to tell me, man, you should be living in New York, man. I said, yeah, well, when I feel like I'm ready, I'll move, you know. So I worked with Tad's band there, with Dexter and Freddie Webster and whatnot, and Tad and I became good friends. And I didn't see him again until later on in New York, after I finally moved to New York. Well, I saw him again, but in and out of town, you know. But then we became great friends.
In New York?
I mean, when I went out with him with Bull Moose Jackson, he was the band director. And all the time, every time he wanted to do records or anything, he just made it sure that I would be the drummer.
Did you actually work on lots of pieces of music with him? And did you and he develop some of his pieces
we
together?
did a lot of collaboration on a lot of tunes, because when I went to live with him, I'm with him constantly all the time. And he'd call me to the piano and say, how do you like this, Joe? And I'd say, yeah, man. And then he would get to a spot where he'd say, I wonder what I should put in there. You got any suggestions? It'd be a thing like that.
Would you mind, at this point, I don't think people know that, a lot of people don't know that you do play some piano.
A little bit.
A little bit or very little, okay.
Very little, because it's just something that I love, and I've been studying, and now more so than ever trying to develop. See, I like to use it for writing. See, Tad used to show me how to make a chord and what horn to give a note if you want to voice it. I've written a few things for the band and whatnot. But that instrument you have to play fluently. To play, I can play some compositions or composition and things like that. But to really play with the group or the band and do all the heavy solo, where you have to work with it like you work with any other instrument. I don't have the time to do that. The only thing I have the time to do with that instrument is learn how to play some pretty chords as best I can, and some melodies or whatever. At least the knowledge of the piano I have, but you have to.
Would you mind sitting at the piano for us?
No, I was play one. I play a composition I wrote for my wife. I just wrote it. And I call it Wheezy. Her name is Eloise, and I call it Wheezy. And I was going to, it's an impromptu thing. It goes into the little tempo. It's in and out of tempo. I think it sets better. But when I do it for the band, when I write it out for the band, it'll have to be in a slow tempo.
Okay.
More, a little more than the ballad.
Okay. Want to cut now? What kind of time we got?
How much time?
How important he is as an arranger, your feelings about that, why Damaroni, and then I, ask you about Miles, kind of thing, and then if we have time, about, we might throw in this thing about the whole Dracula trip.
5 seconds. 3, 2, 1.
Well, you said that was a little bit more than a ballad. You'd like to slow it down, to ballad type tempo.
Yeah, put it in a little semi-sweet. Do 3 movements or something. When I finally decide to do it, I may put it in different moods, 3 moves.
Tad, just going back to Tad Dameron for a minute, what is your feeling about his importance? We hear the names, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Max Roach, Kenny Clark, in terms of the bebop, the hierarchy of bebop is very important in setting that mode. Where do you think Tad fits in there, especially with other composer arrangers?
He was the forerunner of all of bebop, man. Tad is the originator of writing all those hip tunes that he did for Dizzy's band. The Squirrel, Hot House, and Tad's got so many. Stay on it, my God. If you can see me now, Our Delights, His Delight, Tad's Delight. Tad was writing all of those things that all of the musicians in my time grew up on. We grew up on his music, grew up on his figures. He used to, see, in other words, he would write a tune with the chords and the melody. He would pick a tune like Charlie Parker would pick a tune like out of nowhere and write a bebop figure to it. Tad would be writing things like that, and he was saturating the market with it because it just came off the top of his head, and it was beautiful, the tunes that he composed. And all the musicians, if you didn't know those tunes, man, you would be obsolete. You couldn't go nowhere and play. But the fellas, they would be playing. They would call a tune and play the bebop figures on them, which became hit records, and a lot of those things were. And Tad was a heavy influence on all the writers. And Quincy, man, he come up under listening to Tad. All the great writers today. You can very rarely find a writer on writing you can't play, and you don't hear him touch on Tad's voicings or the way he used to put a band together. That's why Tad can make 9 pieces sound like 20, and the way he would put it on the orchestrate. He's done a lot of symphonic things. Tad was a genius, man, a genius. He used to love to play with us too. Sometimes he was a good comp. He could comp good. He used to play funny solos. His solos used to be very tricky and funny, but he used to play. All the fellows loved him to be there comping because he'd give you the right, lay the carpet down for you.
To play on?
Oh, yeah. Tad was the greatest composer that I've ever heard and orchestrator. I hear a lot of great composers today and coming up during his time, but they couldn't touch him as far as I'm concerned. And he could never get the recognition that he's supposed to have gotten, man, for his contribution. He contributed more to this form of music than anybody I know, any composer out there. There's not one out there that contributed that much to this music.
And you're saying that in respect to Ellington, Monk?
Well, Duke's music wasn't the kind of, Duke's contribution could never be surpassed. But his music was different than Tad's music. See, Duke loved what Tad came up with. See, Duke came along before Tad. See, Tad's an extension from Duke Ellington, only he changed. Just like when Dizzy was in Cab Calloway's band. Calloway fired him because he was playing too much trumpet. He thought he was playing nothing. Cab thought he was playing nothing, but Dizzy was playing in a new constructive way of playing the horn. Guys were playing, the trumpet players started, and they used to think that when Louis Armstrong would hit the C above the staff, that was high C. And high C, man, he go above opticimal C's. Louis used to work up to that, hit that C up there, everybody think, oh, he's above the staff. He go three octaves above that, man, the trumpet players today. Hit him on the head, G's and E's. Louis never played no G's and E's in his day. Way up there, for what reason? Cat Anderson, Whistler, and Duke's band came later. Everything changes. The horn started changing. All the old timers didn't like bebop because they couldn't play it. Noise, that ain't nothing, that's noise. It's never been noise, man. It's going to the places where they dare not go. They say, oh no, man, you can't play that flatted fifth. What do you mean you can't play a flatted fifth? Flatted fifth's a pretty chord. You know, if you flat it or you do something with the chord out of the ordinary, 1, 3, 5 or whatever that is, that they do, that they were doing with the chords and church chords, and if you dress it up, then you're wrong, but that's not true. Today all the chords are dressed up beautiful. You write dissonance and things today, you know. You deliberately put two notes together, like a C and a D in a chord. You deliberately do that. Whereas, you know, you don't do that. You can't put those two together. But you do, if you listen to it, according to what you have in the root and what you put on the top, if you've got those two notes in the middle, they sound beautiful. It's a dissonance, but it's for the ear. Listen to the greatest, the great symphonic composers. They had a lot of don'ts that they wouldn't do. If they heard some of the music they hear today, they probably commit suicide. You know what I mean? What they would consider wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I doubt. You know, I often have said this on different interviews. I think if Beethoven and Mozart or Franz Liszt had heard Art Tatum, I think they might have committed suicide. If they'd heard a pianist like Art Tatum, I think they might have either marveled at him or decided to jump off the bridge or something to see somebody playing the piano like that and playing it with so much cleanliness and so much accuracy and so much speed and with so much knowledge of music. But you mention Art Tatum today to our children, they don't know anything about Art Tatum. Greatest that ever played it, to me and to many, many millions of people. Art Tatum is the phew. Billy Taylor, Usher Peterson, they'll tell you about Art Tatum. They knew him. I worked with him, and I knew him every night.
When did you work with Art Tatum?
Unbelievable.
When did you work with Art Tatum?
I worked with Art Tatum and Ben Webster trio every night in New York when I was working in Birdland in the 50s. Sure, I used to finish Birdland and get in a cab and dash uptown to my after-hour gig. Nobody but Art and Ben, that's all. And snare drum, bass drum, and one cymbal. And brushes, no sticks. After our place, St. Nicholas. Beautiful. Every night. Can you imagine what that is with the genius? 2 geniuses. Ben Webster's a genius. I came here in Washington with Ben for 2 or 3 years straight when we worked together. I worked with Ben.
Where'd you work here with him? What place?
We worked here at Benghazi. We worked around the corner in a couple clubs there. We worked at Olivia Davis's club here. I've been here with Ben many, many times. Miles, too.
I'm glad you did that, because I would probably be assassinated by someone if we went through this interview and we didn't talk about your relationship with Miles Davis.
Oh, my relationship with Miles is such a...
I mean, you could go volumes on that, but...
That's, you know, that would take me 10 years to sit here and talk about him. It never ends. And,
well, let's talk about it.
Our relationship is still cool, you know.
Let's talk about it for about 5 minutes.
Well, you know, Miles is, you know, Miles is a very strange person, and when I say strange person, as far as, he's strange when people talk about him. You know, with me, I know he's gonna, if he reads anything I say, he just laugh and say, well, he knows I'm, you know, but people usually say things about him that they don't really know. It's hearsay, and they shouldn't say, you know, he shouldn't say anything like that.
Well, what I'm interested in, like we were talking before about how the band got together.
With the band, and you know, I knew Miles when I met Tad. I knew Miles before Tad. Coming in town, and we got together, in Philadelphia, in the club. We got together in Philadelphia in the club, and he was doing a single, and I had the house trio. He came in and worked a couple of weeks, and fell in love with me. I fell in love with him. I said, we should be playing together. Something I wanted to play with him anyway, man. And he came back again, and so we finally said, well, man, why don't you come on and go out with me for a while? We go out and play something. I said, all right. I went out with him. He says, just a duo, just he and I on the road, man. And I'd get in different towns and try to get a piano player, a bass player, and finally get a saxophone player. Well, he did a quartet for a long time. We were working here, quartet. And he used to talk about the saxophone player and the correct.
You were talking about
forming the band.
Forming the band and Ray Bryant.
Well, Ray Bryant was the first pianist, and forget the bassist. Oh, as well as I know him too, it's hard to think. Anyway, I just thought that Ray was a little bit too much. He had more church in him than he had Bud Powell in him. Ray grew up in the church, which Ray is a fine pianist, excellent pianist. But his comp feeling and whatnot was more in the gospel thing. And because he used to play for church all the time, and his kid, we were all growing up, you know, his parents, and they had church. So Miles said he wanted something different. So I said, well, man, when she read this Bud Powell around here, he plays Bud stuff. And so they got ready to come in, and we still had the bass player there, and got John Coltrane to come in with us. So the first night we started playing, he said, man, this sound, now we begin to sound. And Miles loved Train, he loved Red, so he was happy. So he said he had a bass player in New York, which was Paul. I didn't know Paul, I had never met Paul. But Miles had, so he sent for him, and that started the, as soon as we played the first night, Miles went out and bought uniforms for us.
That was when he knew the personnel he wanted, that was it.
No, he didn't know the personnel he wanted. He just knew that he knew he wanted Paul, but he knew he didn't want what he was playing with.
Yeah.
So he was asking them, he knew about Train. Train had been with Dizzy. Had been out there with Eddie Clean, had Vincent, he'd been Train, had been out with a whole lot of people. Miles had heard him, but he never knew that the saxophone player that he was looking for would be Train. And I'm the one that said, man, why don't you try him? I think you and him would be. You're looking for that marriage. You're looking for the marriage between horns. It's a marriage, man. But he was lucky he got a marriage between horns and rhythm section. It's a musical telepathy. That's one of the greatest things you can have when five men can play together and don't have to rehearse. We never rehearsed. You know? You never rehearsed no music, man. Miles is too lazy to rehearse, man. Me too. So, man, come on, man. Let's play it tonight and play it like that tomorrow. He always used to say that. I said, what? I said, yeah, man, just remember what you played. You remember the tempo, you're the drummer. And the next night we just played this, we played the beginning like we did and the ending like we did, but inside, I never know what's gonna happen in there. Every night is different. But that made it so beautiful, man. It made the music so beautiful. Because everything's spontaneous inside, but we know how we're gonna leave and we know how we're gonna start. And we know how fast we're gonna go, how slow we're gonna go. So you can get as pretty as you want to get inside and do what you want to do. And whatever you feel like, when it comes to you, you just turn around and look at you, go, you got it. Nice music makes you, I learned so much. I learned an awful lot there, man.
In that band?
Oh, man, sure. Certainly, man, everybody there had something to say, man. They had something to say. And suggestions, you never have nobody getting drugged with what you play. We had a lot of fun, man. It was fun. It's happiness. You know, I wish I could get that again in this life before I leave. That complete feeling of with everybody on the bandstand. I almost get it with my own group. I get it anyway. Everybody in my group is cool.
You mean Dan Maroney?
Oh yeah, everybody in Dan Maroney is cool. They're beautiful people. So I almost get that feeling, but it's hard to get the telepathy with 8 other people. Because you don't, unless you're playing together every night, week after week after week. See, I haven't gotten that much exposure, although we've been together over 3 years. And just the promoters and whatnot just seem to lean towards other groups and tell me that I can't afford it and all that. But I see they can afford 19-piece bands and 17-piece bands and take them all out on festivals and whatnot. But when they come to a small 9-piece band, it makes me feel as though they want to try to keep Tad's music hidden. See, the music that I've been playing with Tad, we've got about 12 or 15 more arrangements that we haven't even played.
Yeah.
We've done two Grammy-nominated albums, and I've been saving the meat all the way down the line. Again, we can do 2 more albums, man, of Tad's music. Tad, there's no end to it, man. He wrote so much. Man. There's so many more compositions that he had that he was doing before at the time he died, which I haven't even touched on him yet. His wife has them. She says they're from me. She's in London. She said, all this is yours. He would want you to have it. That's who I have permission to use his name and whatnot, Damaroni and whatnot. And she and I, of course, we were friends when he was alive, because we were with him, and several times. I was with him on 2 of his heart attacks. His 3rd, I was in Japan, and I was so sick. I thought maybe I might have been with him on that 3rd one. And I was with him on 2 of them. And I knew where he kept his nitroglycerin pills, and I'd get on him, man. I'd get on him, give it to him. Fell out, man. I knew it was happening because we talked, man. I lived with him. See him go like that, I said, no, he's having a heart attack. I know how to do it. I know what to do for him, with the chest and breathing in the mouth, put the pill in, everything, man. And get him to the hospital. He had 1 in Miles's house. 1 in the house we lived in, 1 in Miles's house. And then the next one he had, I was in Japan in March of '65 when it happened. But I'm gonna keep him alive as long as I can and keep him alive in the people's ears.
Well, you put some of it in the people's ears this weekend at when you performed the Damaroni concert at the Capital City Jazz Festival.
I'd like to come back again sometime and really have some more of the beautiful things that he's composed and arranged, and let the people hear some more, because he had some spectacular music.
Okay.